with guns in our hands will forever be. Southern blood runs deep through our veins. We'll stand tall for America till the end of our days.
Well, hello, good evening. I'm Sully, and as always, welcome to the Gun Club. Alrighty. First off, I'd like to welcome all of our friends, viewers, friends of the channel, people who check in with us, all the people who make this really kind of worth it, the people who stop by, make comments, send in notes, send in little emails. A happy, healthy, wonderful new year. I hope you rang it in with friends. I hope you are having an amazing time. I know that I got to ring mine in. I was working most of the night last night. We had a night. I'll leave it at that. We kind of had a night, but it was a good night. We all got through it healthy. We all lived through it, so it was all good. And we'll come back and do it again. I debated if I was going to do a stream tonight, but I'm sort of wallowing in content, if that makes sense. Yeah, there's an ebb and flow of events in the firearms industry, and sometimes there's just so much going on. And other days, it's like I'm trying to find something interesting here. Not sure what I'm going to find. Well, yeah, we've got a lot of content, and I've got a few things I want to go over today. And a lot of it is centered around our ATF, or if you're going to use the proper name, the Bureau of Alcohol, Firearms, Tobacco, and Explosives. And to quote Representative Matt Gaetz, the Bureau of Alcohol, Firearms, Tobacco, and Explosives should actually be a chain of convenience stores in Florida, much less a multi-million-dollar government agency. Unfortunately, well, we know what it is. And I don't mean to pick on all of the ATF. I am sure, and I will say this, and I might get a little hate for it, I am sure there are some decent men and women at the ATF who come in, who do a good job, who are in it for the right reasons, who are actually trying to do something positive. But on the other side of that coin, sometimes you can have great people with absolutely crapola leadership, and you take a good agency and turn it into the joke of our channel tonight. Let's see who we got checking in. I see we've got Mary checking in. Mary, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Yes, of course, and a happy new year to you and yours as well. I hope all of your offspring are doing wonderfully all over the place. I hope you're doing wonderfully. I see, Alicia is checked in. Hope you're doing wonderful. And of course, we've got Mel rounding out the chat group today because she wanted to stop by and just say, hey. Yeah, she heard a little bit of the story about last night. We had a fun night last night. Enough that I had to come home and take a nap, so we'll leave it at that. But getting back to the ATF, maybe 2025 will be their year. Maybe they're going to get their act together for a change. Because as we know, 2024 was definitely not their year. If we think back to some of 2024's greatest hits, how about, let's see, back, I think it was around March, maybe March 19th or so, the ATF went out and did a raid in Arkansas. You might remember us talking about it on the channel. I do believe my liver took quite a hit that night. They raided a gentleman named Brian Malinowski. That name sounds familiar. Kind of a unique one. Brian Malinowski, an airport executive who was running the Little Rock, Arkansas airport. He bought a lot of guns. And a couple of guns that he had bought at one time ended up on crime scenes. And yes, he enjoyed firearms. Was he a dealer? Was he an FFL? No. But as a private citizen in the state of Arkansas, he can sell guns privately. You can sell guns privately to anyone as long as you don't know them or have reason to know them to be a prohibited possessor. So maybe he sold to a couple of sketch dudes, or maybe he sold to a couple of Boy Scouts, and they sold to a couple of sketch dudes. They really never figured out what the connection was. They just looked at what he was buying and said, "We think that he's buying too many guns." Is that over 5, over 10, over 15, less than 20? No, too many. Kind of vague. Very, very objective decision. Do you own too many guns? Have you bought too many guns? Have you sold one or two of them at gun shows to people? Maybe you have. That doesn't justify what happened to Mr. Malinowski. And as Mel has already cut to the chase, she sort of Hollywooded me there. Yeah, kind of upstaged me. They went and did a raid on Brian Malinowski, wanting his records. They did not, at the time they went to his house, have a warrant for his arrest. He was not at that time accused of any crime. They just wanted his records, paperwork. So if you're doing a raid for paperwork, how would you handle this appropriately? Oh, I think you show up with a full tactical team. You've also got Little Rock PD there to back you up. Maybe an armored personnel carrier. Oh, don't do it during business hours either, like 9 to 5 or, you know. I think you should roll up on the house at O'Dark 100 with a full tactical team. I think you should then use electrical tape to cover his cameras. And I think you should then wake up the family by kicking down the door, throw a couple of flashbangs. I mean, after all, if he is sound asleep, you probably got the advantage on him. You're going to take him down by force. And when this poor guy wakes up dazed and confused in the middle of the night, his cameras are covered up, and there are people storming his house. If he reacts in a little bit of panic and actually goes for one of his weapons, thinking it's the target of a home invasion, then you're totally justified in putting a round between his eyes. It was less than a minute from the time the ATF busted down his door until the time his wife watched him catch a round between the eyes. And bye bye, hubby. Yeah, because maybe he bought too many guns. The ATF's actions in Little Rock, I understand that they said, well, he was shooting at us. If you wake someone up in the dead of the night and you're kicking down their door and they don't even know what the hell's going on, what do you expect the reaction to be? In the world we're living in, yeah, Brian Malinowski was defending his castle. He didn't know there was a raid. He didn't know there was a warrant. He didn't know there was anything. What Brian knew is that, oh my God, people are kicking down the door. Me and my family are being attacked. And he did the most normal thing in the world. He went for a weapon to defend themselves. And it cost him his life. And subsequent to that, the ATF director was out on the Hill talking to Congress. And, well, guess what? They sat there, and in the months since his death, the ATF faced questions. Oh, by the way, none of the agents were wearing any type of body camera. Yeah, why would you need that? So at the congressional hearings, Republicans led by hard right Jim Jordan painted Malinowski as a victim of ATF overreach. You went there to look for documents at the middle of the night with a SWAT team, and a man ended up dead. Now, I'm going to say this, and I'm not trying to simp for Big Daddy government at all. Again, I think they can do right in some cases. On the other side of that coin, I have to question this. Using tactics like that is not only dangerous for Mr. Malinowski, as we've certainly proved, it is incredibly dangerous for the agents involved. Let's say that Mr. Malinowski had a little bit better luck that night, or been a little bit better shot. And let's say he had actually killed a couple of ATF agents. We'd be saying, oh my God, how awful he is. He's a criminal. He shot up the ATF agents. They brought that fight. They create that conflict. There's a reason why they were exchanging fire with the resident of the home that day. Probably their tactics. Now, again, this guy is not like a known gang member or anything else. This guy runs an airport. He works his normal, like, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Goes to airport property. Can, go over there. Yeah, Little Rock, Arkansas Airport. We all joke it was the Clinton Airport, and what do you have on Hillary? But maybe that's, I don't know. But the thing is, when you show up, Dark 100, tape over the cameras to make sure he's dazed and confused and can't get any good information, what's he supposed to think? Yeah. So they shut off the electricity of the house, cover the camera, all because of a records subpoena, because of wanting paperwork. No, they could not have, like, picked him up on the way home from work or to work. He couldn't have been pulling up in his car at the airport on federal property. Could have been parking his car, walking inside, and a couple cars, guys show up and talk to him there. No, that would have been safer for them and him. Let's imagine for a second that an ATF agent or two was killed in this. If their piss poor prior planning led to the death of one or more of their own personnel, we'd be talking about how bad Brian Malinowski is. Because he shot the ATF agents. They caused it. Don't do stupid stuff. And then their director, Stephen Diddlebach, yeah, that's the name, goes before Congress and says, "Oh, well, I wasn't really aware of this until after it happened. We do thousands of raids, but it looks like totally justified." Remember, 2 seconds before, Little Rock PD turns on their emergency lights and siren out in front of the house, and then 2 seconds before, ATF pounds on the door and kicks it in. Yeah. Less than 30 seconds later, battering ram. 15 seconds after that, agents return fire and put him down. Yeah. And they say, well, our agents were wearing something that said ATF, police on the vest. They clearly knew. You're waking up at Dark 100. Are you reading what's on their vest? People storming your house? Yeah. Yeah. Lishy, honey, I agree with you. It's nuts. And we covered it. And we covered it extensively because it was like, of all the people. I mean, let's face it. If, let's say, he sold some guns to some people he shouldn't have, let's say he had done some stupid stuff in his life. Okay. That's not a death sentence, or it shouldn't be. But if you're going there for records from a guy who runs an airport, I mean, wow. This was March. And again, in through the hearings in April, and they tried to justify it, and they've said it's justified, and you know, under the law, and this was said in one of the hearings, I'm going to quote directly here. Legally, law enforcement must give the person inside a reasonable amount of time to come to the door and admit them voluntarily before forcefully entering. A search warrant is not supposed to be a license for a home invasion, especially during an investigation of a low level violation such as a little risk involved in the search. Reasonable time can be short in certain cases, such as those involving narcotics or other evidence that can be easily destroyed, or when there's risk of someone fleeing. None of those or any other exigent circumstances were present on the morning of the Malinowski raid. How long is it reasonable to wait for someone to answer the door at 6 in the morning in response to unexplained loud pounding in a 3,000 square foot, fully insulated home? Let's pray the answer isn't 28 seconds, because if it is, the Fourth Amendment means nothing for any of us. So, yeah, that's kind of what's coming out. And that was the Malinowski raid. Now, that's March. Why do I bring Brian Malinowski up besides the fact they've yet to really have a good explanation for it? Well, maybe because it happened again. Yeah. And this is the really troubling part. 8 months after the fiasco at Brian Malinowski's house in Little Rock, Arkansas, the ATF did it again. Fortunately, this one had a better outcome, but this could have been another tragic story. In dawn raid in Baltimore. If you're not familiar, there's a gentleman who's Mark, goes by the middle name Choppa, Choppa, Manley, Mark Manley. He and his wife, by all accounts, decent, law-abiding citizens. Now, Mark is also a pretty rabid 2A activist. When I say rabid, pretty loud 2A activist. He's not a criminal. He's got no record. In their real life, he and his wife work at a school district. He teaches violence intervention, violence interruption. He works in a not too great school district, teaching kids better conflict resolution skills, teaching kids 2A responsibility, teaching kids life skills. He and his wife give him back to a community that ain't the greatest. And he's also a legal firearms owner because, as an American citizen, he has that right. Now, does he own a lot of guns? Yeah, probably does. Depending on what you consider a lot. Probably has about 70 legally owned firearms, according to him, that he diligently stores in a safe in his home. All of his firearms are legal. He's not some big bad gun dealer. This ain't going to be the guy that we find out he's selling guns out the back of his truck outside the school at 7 o'clock at night. Hell no. Mark Manley is actually one of the people trying to help the kids in the underserved Baltimore community. A very otherwise decent human being. Yeah. Well, he and his wife had a little bit of a wake-up call back in November of this year. Again, 8 months after they shot and killed Brian Malinowski, and I will say murdered. Yeah. Fortunately, they get up about 4:30 in the morning. His wife had got up and gone downstairs to make coffee because, they work as teachers. They got to go in early. And so she's down making coffee and notices people outside moving around. She yells. He's upstairs just getting out of bed. He looks at his security feed, his security camera feed. He sees people in raid gear in the backyard, people in raid gear in the front yard. What the hell? He sees them lining up like they're about to kick down his door. He wakes up his two little girls, his daughters, I think 17 and 13, if I'm correct. Wakes them up so they're ready. The next thing you know, he's hollering outside, talking to them, trying to say, hey, we're up here. What's going on? So that ATF says, yeah, it's the ATF. We've got to look at this. So we've got this warrant and this paper. No, they don't say shit. A flashbang comes through the front door and goes off in the living room floor. His wife is now dazed and confused. Congratulations. Then they take down the front door of his house. Because that's, when people say, hey, what's going on? We're here. What's up? Flashbang him, kick down the door, and then order him, his wife, and his daughters out in 20-degree weather at gunpoint. Because that makes sense, right? That's the correct. Man, they got the tech toys, they got the tactical gear. Yeah, throw the explosives in the house. Now, I'm going to read the account of this from Emmaland. I thought it was the best one I read. The morning of the raid started just like any other morning, Manley told the Second Amendment Foundation's Journalism Project. My wife went downstairs around 4:30 to make coffee. I was sitting on the side of the bed getting myself together. Mark, there's someone outside the house, she yelled. She saw people moving. Manley grabbed a handgun, looked out the window. He could see ATF making tactical movements all over his front yard. I could see agents crouching down with long guns. Manley checked his home security system, saw more agents taking tactical positions in the backyard. He put down the pistol, thank God. and quickly woke his 2 daughters, but couldn't get to his 15-year-old son who was asleep in the basement of the house. I looked out the window again and could tell they were going to bust down our door. I yelled, "Hello, hello, we're up here." All of a sudden, a bomb went off. My wife screamed. She followed right behind me on our way out, but was disoriented. She was in pure shock. All of the family walked through the front door. They saw dozens of heavily armed ATF agents. I got my arms up. I'm walking down the steps. When I got to the bottom, I turned around and I saw the agents had rifles pointed at my daughters. Manley said, "I have young kids." They had guns pointed at my children. It was a pretty emotional moment for me. I was about to lose control. I yelled, "You have guns on my effing children." They lowered their weapons. Manley and his 17-year-old daughter were each handcuffed. His wife and children were moved to the rear of a SWAT van. It's 20 degrees outside and they're wearing only their pajamas. Sit that for a second. What did he do? What was he accused of? What justifies a government agency treating a citizen like this? How bad does that person have to be? Well, "I'd like you to take the handcuffs off my daughter," his wife told the ATF agents. "Why did you handcuff my husband? He's complying with everything you asked for." The family then heard ATF agents talking about their 15-year-old son, who was still asleep in his basement bedroom. They flashbanged the 15-year-old in an enclosed basement. Manley goes on to say, "My son loves his basement. He has his own place, but they busted down his door, threw a grenade, and 14 agents ran into his room, guns drawn, threatening to shoot him. He was woken by surprise. They busted down the glass door to his room, had guns drawn. We were relieved to see when they brought him out. They were relieved to see their son was still alive." Manley started to think about his neighbors. He and his family only moved to their home about 3 months ago. Now, the neighborhood is predominantly white. For us to be the only black family on the block, the ATF just assumed they'd find something in our house. His words, not mine. Next, the ATF agent brought police canines and their handlers to the scene. The dogs ransacked the house. They defecated everywhere. That was uncalled for. Meanwhile, a host of ATF agents ransacked the house. They found his gun safe. They threatened to blow into his gun safe. He said, "I don't have anything to hide." I agreed to open the safe. They uncuffed me and told me, "Don't try to run." Where was I going to go? My entire family was there. This is his account of it. They've got his entire family pulled out of their house at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. And then, "Don't try to run. We got you." Th- yeah, they were all standing around. Manley said he'd unlock his gun safe. They're all standing around and waiting. This was their moment, they thought. They started pulling out rifles and shotguns, but everything was registered. Everything was Maryland compliant. "We got nothing here," one of them said. One ATF agent, who had told Manley's wife he was the lead investigator, asked her later via phone for dimensions and other information about the doors and windows that his team had destroyed, which they're talking about replacing. She said, "I don't want to talk to them. I didn't reply. I couldn't. They had just waged a war on our family." Yeah. The Manley family was never told, at least officially, why they were targeted for this raid. Yeah. "We don't have to tell you. We're the government." He said, "Yeah, I've done nothing illegal. I don't sell guns. I don't own any machine guns." The search warrant said that he was a felon. Manley said, "He's a felon in possession of a firearm." Manley says, "I don't have any record." You think they'd looked? You think they'd have checked? Yeah. hmm Their home was terribly damaged in the raid. It needs floor repair in the living room, their son's bedroom because of flashbang grenades. Their front and rear doors still remain shattered. Police canine feces, the family cleaned up themselves. The agent said, well, someone said you were a felon. Why would someone make this up about you? Are you kidding me? Manley says, and this is his words, I made it out of the inner city in poverty. People who are still there know me and envy what I've become. I do all the giving back. But this hate, this jealousy, someone must have gotten caught with something and said, yeah, Mark's got all kinds of guns. So to this day, we don't know. Someone got caught, said some lies, and it's just too easy because the government has kicked down the doors to my home. Manley and his family are working on speaking with attorneys. They have not been shown, at least as of the time of this article, the search warrant. They were told it was a sealed warrant and they didn't have a right to see it. With anything about the black white stuff, I could give a shit. Mark Manley is an American citizen, as am I, as are a lot of you. The ATF is a government agency. Our taxes pay their salary. Whatever they do, they need to fix this. Yeah. And again, you can look up Mark Manley or Chopper Manley. It happened up in Maryland. It is absolutely, totally disgusting. I mean, this guy, there is no reason whatsoever this should have happened. There is no reason whatsoever that this should go on. I mean, I don't get it because if this was some bad guy or whatever, he had done a whole bunch of, illegal stuff, I could say, you know what? Okay, he decided to go down that road. And so they went in and went really hard, on him. On the other side of that coin, yeah, he was the one who went down that road. But this guy, you do a simple search, you know, hate to say this, if the ATF's gonna play that game. I mean, to me, this guy is um pretty well known in the firearms industry. Mark Choppa Manley. I'm pretty sure he's got a Twitter feed. I haven't looked for a Twitter on him, but I mean, I don't think it would be that hard to come up with. So we've got somebody who, by all rights, is a law abiding, decent human citizen, not causing any problems, not doing anything bad. And what do we have? We've got his uh, home being raided like this. We've got him, his family being treated like this. And yeah, I got a major problem with it. And I know sometimes we have people on the show, or sometimes I get grief when I go on other shows about, oh, I always simp for the blue. I always simp for the blue. I said, look, I'll back the good ones. And the ones who are absolutely scumbags, I think we need to clean them out. And I understand that, there are going to be good ones, there are going to be bad ones. But, absolutely ridiculous. And yeah, he's under the Twitter name of at Mark Choppa TV. So let's take a quick glance over at his Twitter feed here. And let's see what I can come up with. This is the guy who they decided they had to have a raid on. Now, I get, if they want to look at it and say, okay, well, this guy's got like guns. Yeah. But on the other side of the coin, this is, social media influencer, you know, and here it is. The ATF did it again. Yeah. Talks about the raid, the damage to his house. Mark Chopham, again, everybody posting up his old videos. Be the change you want to see in the world. Yeah. Yeah. A shooter's workout. Yeah. Does this guy look like some nasty bad gun dealer? Or is he just a firearms enthusiast? There's his Christmas pictures. Yeah. And there's the little girls that were ordered out. Yeah. She looks really dangerous. She really does. Yeah. Yeah. Is he a gun tuber or gun influencer? Yeah. Does that give them a right to pull a shit show like this? No. Yeah, Mel, I see your comment. I don't know about the dogs pooping in the house. That one, I just have questions also. But then again, um, especially if these are maybe local canine and, they're really excited or they're confused, or I will say dogs can react unpredictably sometimes. Secondly, any dog is only as good as the agency handler who's running the dog. And it doesn't sound like a really positive agency here. Now, one big similarity between Mark and Brian Malinowski, who we've talked about, both ODark 100 raids for people with absolutely zero criminal record, both hyper aggressive ATF crap shows. Yeah. And the thing is, there are questions about this. And I'm sure there will be questions about this. It happened back in November, and it didn't even fall on my radar until about, I'd say, 4 or 5 days before Christmas, right going into the Christmas holiday. That was like, oh, the ATF did it again. I was like, did what again? Oh, they Brian Malinowski someone. Who'd they shoot now? Well, they didn't shoot the guy, but this is how it's coming out. And now the pictures are coming out. So it's taken a while to make the rounds. I think once Congress gets back in session, they might have some explaining to do after they get a few things taken care of for running the country. And yeah, Mary, I agree with you, and that's where it's crazy. Yeah, the admin says this is okay. Well, I mean, Joe did say that poor kids are just as smart as white kids and deserve the same, right? That was the Joe Biden quote. Yeah. To me, Brian Malinowski, it happened. It was atrocious. It was a one-off. And after the call for accountability in Congress, that should have been a learning curve. Yeah, I've made my share of mistakes in life. Yes, I'll admit to them. Some of y'all know a lot about a lot of them. But the thing is, I've tried to at least learn from them and not repeat them. 8 months, after the Malinowski raid, about 5 to 6 months after their director was called on the carpet by members of Congress demanding answers about what happened to Brian Malinowski, they do it again. They learned absolutely nothing. And to me, that is part of the biggest problem. They learned nothing from the Brian Malinowski raid. In fact, I'm going to see here. See if I can pull this one up. Because members of Congress did question this. And, there was a lot of upheaval on the floor of Congress saying, and I quote, what the hell was going on? And now we have what? Yeah, they did it again. And this all goes on. And to me is absolutely insane. Let's share this slot. There you
go. Try to convince the American people you don't have the do-re-mi to put body cameras on your agents that are conducting 11,000 warrants. These are dangerous. You've got 11,000 of them out there, and you had a budget last year of $1.6 $7.2 billion with a B. And you're telling me, I'm sorry, folks, I can't provide this transparency to the American people. I can't because I don't have the budget to do so. The American people, there's a problem right now with law enforcement out there. And I have the picture and the image of every law enforcement officer that's been killed in the past 3.5 years. And there's way too many. There's way too many on my wall.
We agree.
And so we have body-worn cameras. And why do we do that? Because there is a lack of trust between the police and the communities they serve. So when you provide these cameras, there's no he said, she said. It's all on record. And you didn't have your body cameras on that day. I'm telling you, it stinks to high heaven. I highly recommend you cooperate with this committee and you try to explain, other than this, I don't have the money to do so and I'm phasing it in. Buddy, you got to get your priorities, reshuffle your priorities and get your priorities in order. And I highly recommend you get body cameras on every one of those individuals that are searching these warrants, because it seems like there's a cover up here. I yield back.
Yeah, that was in a congressional hearing, and that was directed at ATF Director Stephen Dittelbach. Yeah. Let's see what we got here. Did they not at least research his family? Well, ma'am, I'm going to let you answer that question for yourself. I'm going to let you answer that question for yourself. Well, had they done that, they probably would have known. But folks, no, they learned nothing. They learned nothing. And that is the part that just absolutely drives me nuts. Because, at the official hearings on what happened to Brian Malinowski, this was in May, that Stephen Dittelbach getting called on the carpet. And this one's presented by our friends over at NAGR.
I believe with us today, Ms. Malinowski, if you're out there, would you please stand? I'd like to recognize you, Ms. Malinowski. First name is Mayor, Director. Would you like to stand up and look at her and apologize?
I've already said, of course, whenever these things happen, it's a tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we're sorry. Everybody is sorry that this occurred.
Yeah, look at her. Don't look at me.
It doesn't mean that I'm trying to also speak into the microphone. It doesn't mean that we can adjudicate this here today. There's an investigation going on. But of course, everybody, and everybody feels bad. I'm sure that a federal agent was shot, not shot at, shot that day. Those things are hard facts for all of us.
Okay, all right. I believe with us today, Ms. Malinowski, if you're out there, would you?
He did okay until, and a federal agent was shot that day. Well, they broke into someone's home at 6 o'clock in the morning. Their tactics caused that firefight. They made that decision. 15 minutes before they made that decision, if they had said, let's go out to get coffee at Denny's instead and go to the range, nobody would have been shot. Nobody would have been killed. And yeah, to the widow's face, oh, well, and one of my agents was shot. The fact that she didn't say, and it should have been more of them. And I'm sorry. Like I said, I back the blue when they're right and doing right. But when they're kicking down people's doors blindly, and Mel brought up a good point, shouldn't they have known that the man leaves would be up at that time? Shouldn't they have done a little recon? Well, they don't work for me. Well, because if a lot of them did, they wouldn't. But, yeah. But we can go through all that. And that was Stephen Dittelbach, the head of the ATF, out there in court trying to justify the absolute crap show that was the Malinowski raid. And while we haven't heard anything yet, we have not seen anything on the Manly raid. And it may not make it all the way to Congress just because of the fact that, the Manly raid did not have a fatality. Fortunately, he and his wife were up. But this is our ATF, folks. And, we'll look beyond that. And it's his fault. The agent being shot and Malinowski being killed. He's blamed for all of it. Yeah. Mel, you ain't wrong, girl. You ain't wrong. They chose that course of action. They chose those tactics. And I know, there are some people who will say that I'm evil or this, that, or the other. I don't want to see anyone, get shot, get killed, get anything. No. But, the ATF has a job to do. I'll even agree with that. They have a job to do. That's fine. So, yeah. What are we going to do? How are we going to do it? Well, do it right. Don't do stupid shit. How about that? I mean, I'll go with the simplest. Don't do stupid stuff. Making stupid raids, stupid, crazy stuff like that. That's going to make this happen. And, unbelievable. Now, there's a little bit of good news, and with all our ATF drama, well, before we get into that, this was a letter and it came out a little while ago, and I found it in Ammo Land when I was going through some of my stuff, and I thought we might have an interesting look inside what the ATF is and what it's become. Now, this letter was published back in the summer of 22 in Ammo Land magazine, and it was really interesting because it was right after Stephen Dittelbach had taken over as the new director of the ATF. Under the old director, there was a lot of drama, but then we got Dittelbach in. How is it on the inside of the ATF? What do they think? Yeah. This was a leaked resignation letter provided to MLN News, shows the ATF from the inside out. Brandon Garcia was a career BATFE special agent until he resigned over the politicization of the federal agency due to the government's attempt to divide people. Garcia sent a lengthy 6-page resignation letter laying out his reasons for leaving the Bureau after 18 years of service. He explains that he didn't do the job for money or fun. He wanted to put violent criminals behind bars. But lately, he doesn't feel like he knew what was his mission anymore. He was asked to do things that didn't make sense, and when he was asked why, he was told because they said so. Yeah. I don't know what the mission is anymore. I don't like it. For the past couple of years, I found myself asking why a lot more often. As of late, the answer is typically because they said so. I still don't know who they are, but I seem to disagree with whoever they are on pretty much everything. The former special agent now highlights how crimes across the country are prosecuted differently depending on if it's a red or a blue state. He explains that the agents are expected to set aside their personal and political beliefs, but says that the same standard doesn't apply to the entire organization or the Department of Justice as a whole. He claims ATF employees are struggling with the same realization. Garcia claims that the woke left is running the country. He specifically targets the DOJ Civil Rights Division. He insinuates low morale at the ATF and in law enforcement is in general because of the anti-law enforcement movement he feels is being pushed by the administration and by Joe's Attorney General, Merrick Garland. He says the DOJ used COVID as a scapegoat. He points out the last time morale was this low was under the Obama administration, which was also hostile to law enforcement. He points out that each administration celebrates diversity unless it's diversity of thought. The last time morale was this low was probably 2013 to 2016. Coincidentally, that was also the last time we had administration openly criticize law enforcement. Both administrations preached diversity, or rather celebrated it, but then expected everyone to have the same opinions. The now former agent wrote that he believes the country is more divided than ever, pushing people to extremes and leaving those in the middle to suffer. He thinks the government is adding fuel to the fire. Garcia thinks the ATF's leadership isn't fighting for the agents. According to him, the leadership is just going along with the administration not to lose their job. Biden demoted former ATF acting director Marvin Richardson for not going far enough with the new final rule surrounding redefining firearms. Yeah, it's not their place to redefine. That's a congressional authority. They now say Garcia believes that the focus is too much on the gun. He claims recent actions by the ATF show they're aligned with the left and doesn't want to investigate the gun. He wants to investigate the criminal. He claims that the ATF used the failed vaccine mandate to increase the ATF's budget to concentrate on the gun. He claims the ATF catered to Biden's dislike of guns. He said that most ATF agents are pro-gun and anti-criminal. He states that ATF agents didn't become agents to go after law-abiding citizens for non-compliant firearms or to argue what is or is not a gun. And this is a quote from the letter. Did our leaders forget that ATF agents are law enforcement? Most agents are pro-gun. All agents should be anti-criminal. We didn't become ATF so we could collect data and ensure that all the firearms are in compliance, seize trigger components, argue about what is and is not a firearm, or seize firearms for other reasons than prosecuting. Spend countless hours inputting data to justify someone else's existence in headquarters. We became ATF agents so we could work the streets and smack evil in the mouth. We took the job because we're willing to risk it all and hope that we can make the streets just a little bit safer for law-abiding, upstanding citizens. At least that's why I became an ATF agent, Garcia went on to say. He talks about how the Biden administration talks about guns and violent crime in the same sentence, pushes for banning certain types of firearms, but in blue states, those charged with gun crimes are only given a slap on the wrist, or maybe a presidential pardon. He goes on to say violent crimes committed with firearms are usually pled down to nonviolent crimes, and the defendant avoids prison altogether. He also believes that banning guns wouldn't stop crime. He logically points out that criminals don't obey laws. He thinks that criminals will stop using firearms no matter what. He doesn't think they'll stop using firearms no matter what the law says. He believes the administration is targeting populations, summer 2020. Another excerpt here. We can probably agree that law-abiding citizens do not commit gun crime. I think that we can probably also agree the majority of gun owners tend to be more conservative than liberal. So essentially, gun control will only affect law-abiding conservative citizens. Therefore, the government is punishing the conservative population. Similarly, in the summer of 2020, rioters were allowed to burn cities, assault police, and terrorize citizens with little to no consequence. However, the chaos associated with January 6th has resulted in hundreds and hundreds of prosecutions. The vast majority of defendants have been convicted simply of being there. They didn't have pallets of bricks or frozen water bottles staged at the scene, let alone Molotov cocktails to throw into police cars. Still, 18 months later, the left is still absolutely obsessed with it. Yeah, this is an ATF agent who resigned after 18 years with the agency. This again was reported in Ammo Lamb by John Crump. What does it say about our ATF? I mean, it's sad. They've got a job to do that needs to be done properly. Hopefully, once the new administration comes in, we can get a decent ATF director. We can get an ATF director in who will actually, lead them from the front. An ATF director who is, going to be decent, and an administration is decent. And Mary, I agree. They need to know how to do their job. And this is an agency that, I don't want to get into what happened in New Orleans in the wee hours this morning. This agency may have to be very, very on top of their game in the next few months, because who knows who's coming in with what. You know, New Orleans, we know there was a truck involved. There were also numerous IEDs. That E on the end of BATFE is alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and explosives. They're too busy, guess, taking out Brian Malinowski, going after Mark Manley's family. Meanwhile, we've got people making explosives in New Orleans. Totally lost focus. They're a lost agency right now, in my opinion. And again, I don't blame the agents on the street. I think, again, when you read that letter from Garcia, his resignation letter, they're adrift because there's no one at the helm. They're being blown around by the winds of politics and the political change. And that, for New Year's, I'm hoping we get a little bit more organization out of our Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, because, folks, the way they're at right now is kind of rough. Really kind of rough. And it's bad not only for people like Brian Malinowski and Mark Manley. It's bad for America as a whole. These are the people who are going to take care of everything. These are the people who are in charge of, trying to keep our country safe, trying to deal with all this stuff. Yeah. And what have we turned them into? Well, you heard Mark Garcia's version, and I'll go with that. Now, I do have another story, and it's a little bit of a white pill. This one is out of Bradenton, Florida. Manatee County just recently occurred. About a month ago, a couple guys break into a house at O'Dark 100 and wake up a homeowner, and he realizes, oh, wow, someone's breaking into the house. He grabs his gun. He tells his wife to go to the safe room. He comes out of the bedroom, and he sees two masked men. One is already in the house. One is coming in. The one who's in the house, armed with a crowbar. Gentleman fires 3 shots. The one who's on his way in the house flees. The one who was already in the house doesn't flee. And yeah, guess what? Little investigation. We have 2 gentlemen. The one who was in the house, 27-year-old. He is originally from Mexico. He was in the country on an expired visa. So he came in legally, had a visa. It expired. He didn't go back. The other gentleman who fled was captured a little ways away. He was also on a visa. The one who was deceased in the house had previous arrests for burglary in Illinois, had a warrant out of Illinois for skipping out on parole and probation from there. So this ain't like a one of. He previously burgled, convicted of, did time, got released, was on parole, and absconded. That's what he got his parole warrant for. The other one had previous run-ins with law enforcement in California. And again, we're going to backtrack. This happened in Florida. How they got down there, how they got together down there, I don't know. But I want to share what the sheriff says from down in Manatee County. Because, yes, Sheriff, we have, things like this happening in our country. And I'm going to give him a big shout out. Let's see what we got here.
I praise this husband for doing what he needed to do to protect his home and protect his family. And if you're going to be that brazen to come into my home, once again, you should expect that you're going to be shot. Last night at around 9 p.m., Sheriff's Office received a call of shots fired in the River Club area off of Hickory Hammock Circle. Deputies arrived on scene, were met by a homeowner who informed them that 2 masked men had tried to break into their home. He had shot one of them who was still currently inside the home when we arrived. The other suspect ran from the scene. What we have gathered up to this point is the victim, the homeowner, was alerted by his cameras that there was motion on the side of the house. He views the cameras and is able to see two masked men on the side of his home trying to make entry. He tells his wife that this is happening. It's happening now. Find a safe place. He retrieves his firearm, goes into a bedroom, an office, where he's immediately confronted with one of the suspects that's inside of this room. He fires at least 3 shots at the suspect, strikes the suspect. The other suspect, who is halfway through the window at the time, then retreats and is later located by K-9 and deputies about 4 blocks from the scene. The suspect that was shot later expired from his injuries about 7 a.m. this morning, and we are continuing to investigate not only the crime itself, but we're trying to validate the identity of both the suspects. What we do know, as we work with Border Patrol, what we believe is that the suspect that survived is of Chilean descent, came to California from Chile sometime a few months ago. I guess if you are from Chile, Border Patrol gives you a 90-day visa. That visa was supposed to expire in September. Suspect never returned back to Chile. Somehow made it to Tampa about six days ago, allegedly staying at a hotel somewhere in Tampa, and then decided, him and his partner decided that they were going to travel to the River Club area and commit this burglary. We still don't have any information to give you on why they chose this house, why they chose to break into an occupied dwelling. That's still very active, and we're trying to get everything that we can from the suspect. He's being somewhat cooperative, but he's not telling us everything. So I'm not going to give you names at this point, because I'm not even sure that the names that we have are accurate. So we will continue to work with Border Patrol and try to make sure that we have a proper ID on both of these suspects. But the bottom line is, this is the state of Florida. You want to break into someone's home, you should.
I love that sheriff said that. I don't love the fact that a guy got killed. I don't celebrate that. I love the fact he's putting the message out there. I want to know what would happen if every sheriff, chief of police, mayor, governor all came out this week and said, okay, ladies and gentlemen, we got a little announcement for you. If you break into somebody's home, you should expect to be shot. If you break into someone's home, we expect them to shoot you and put you down. If they did that, what do you think would happen to the residential burglary rates in this country? Do we think maybe that would be a deterrent? Because I promise you, that Sheriff Wells right there, I promise you, if there are 2 or 3 other folks around, and again, whether they're local homegrown scumbags or whether we're imported fancy scumbags or Chilean scumbags or Nicaraguan or Guatemalan or Honduran or Nigerian scumbags, any of them, if any of them was sitting there saying, yeah, I think maybe I'm going to break into a house and do this, that, and the other, and the sheriff says, yeah, we're hoping for the bad guys get shot. Matter of fact, when you get shot, we're going to come out and laugh at you. Yeah, maybe I don't want to do that around here. Yeah. We remember was a Florida sheriff not too long back who was offering to teach, who was offering free firearm lessons said, yeah, we've decided how we're going to make our community safer. If anyone stopped by during the day, we'll teach you. Yeah, I promise you. They had a little bit better grip on what was going on. They had a solution for crime. Trained, armed citizens. And again, for firearm safety, train people properly. Because, you know, as Michael Cargill would say, guns don't do bad things by themselves.
Did you know a gun will not fire unless you pull the trigger? We conducted an in-house study with 3 different firearms to prove this claim. And here are the results. Fire! 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 So having seen the results of our study, we have a simple question. And you can answer in the comment section down below. A gun will not fire unless A, it decides to do so using free will, or B, a human pulls the trigger. As always, more guns equals less crime. Right there and buy yourself a gun.
Yeah. So there's Michael Cargill. He's got his version of it. I kind of like that one. That works for me. You know, again, folks, we are being our own first responders. We're our own, you know, self-defense force. And that's why we train. So that way, when you do hear that camera alert going off or someone pounding on that door, you know, and we just hope it's a bad guy, not the ATF. But all righty, well, that's all I've got for tonight. I appreciate y'all coming out. If y'all have any questions, comments, observations, want to get more information on any of our stories, you know, you can always check us out. We've got a list of contacts down here. Let's see. For more information on anything we do, there's those. And if you want to be kind enough to support our programs, go ahead. You can send us Rumble Rants, of course, share our stuff, follow it out. Again, even if the support's not monetary, the more we get, the more we can build this channel and the more content we will provide. And with that, folks, I'll leave you with this as we get ready for our new year, our new rebirth, because you know what? We definitely need it. 2024 has been a rough time, but that's okay. I think we can rise up from our rough time because, you know, other people have risen up from a hell of a lot more in the past. I think we're smart, we're resilient, and we can do great things.